Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're zeroing in on a totally transformative period that fundamentally altered the very fabric of the United States. We're looking past the sweeping battlefield maps, right? Past the famous generals, to get a really focused look at the everyday citizen who became the ultimate catalyst for change, the American Civil War soldier. Okay, let's dive into this, because understanding the actual people who fought, endured, and survived this crucible is absolutely key to grasping the foundation of modern America.
So think about the sheer concentration of this conflict for a second. We often talk about the American Civil War as this sweeping, almost mythical era in our history. But did you know the exact dates of the American Civil War? We had decades of boiling, intense political tension over states' rights, territorial expansion, and human bondage. All of this just culminated in a massive explosion of conflict that compressed an entire century of societal upheaval into one incredibly tight, frantic window of time.
Just 4 years, 1861 to 1865. I mean, in the grand scope of human history, 48 months is barely a blip on the radar. Yet within this microscopic time frame, the entire trajectory of the United States was completely rewritten. And, it wasn't just a political shift either. It was a period of shocking acceleration. During these 4 years, we literally saw the birth of modern technological warfare. Ironclad ships replacing wooden fleets, repeating rifles changing infantry tactics forever, and the mass use of the telegraph and railroads redefining military logistics. The guys who put on uniforms during this window stepped into a rapidly evolving industrialized meat grinder that the world had truly never seen before.
So the crucial point is the staggering, deeply intimate scale of this mobilization. 3 million individuals. Now, to us today, used to populations in the hundreds of millions, that number might just sound like another statistic. But let's put that into perspective. Back then, 3 million soldiers represented roughly 10% of the entire U.S. population. 10%! Just imagine the profound societal shockwave of that. Almost every single household, every farm, and every workshop suddenly had an empty chair at the dinner table. We're talking about millions of farmers, clerks, and teachers instantly thrust right into the brutal, unrelenting machinery of war.
And when we talk about this conflict being one of the deadliest in U.S. history, we really have to look past the mind-boggling statistics and see the horrifying reality on the ground. More American soldiers died in this single 4-year conflict than in World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam combined. Let that sink in. And honestly, what's truly devastating to realize is that the enemy wasn't always across the battlefield. Actually, disease, things like dysentery, typhoid, and malaria, claimed twice as many lives as bullets and artillery. These soldiers were living in incredibly dense, unsanitary camps where medical knowledge simply hadn't caught up to the massive scale of the armies they'd gathered.
And this brilliantly illustrates the monumental dual legacy of the conflict. The immense weight of all that sacrifice ultimately achieved 2 profound outcomes. First, it held a fractured nation together by sheer force of will, basically proving to the watching world that a constitutional republic could actually survive a catastrophic internal rupture. But just as importantly, it resulted in the complete dismantling of the institution of slavery in the United States. So the preservation of a unified nation and the liberation of millions of enslaved people, these are the 2 immense pillars of this conflict, permanently reshaping the moral and legal landscape of the country.
To really get a grasp on this era, we've got to bring these massive national shifts down to the daily, grueling reality of the soldiers themselves. Think about the incredible endurance required here. We're talking about teenagers and young men marching up to 20 miles a day on terrible rations of hardtack and salt pork, only to be ordered to stand shoulder to shoulder in linear formations while facing just blistering artillery fire. That level of courage, it wasn't just some abstract patriotic ideal. It was a desperate daily requirement. The ultimate sacrifice made in those horrific conditions didn't just win battles. It literally forged the structural, constitutional reality of the America we live in today.
Like the quote says, Civil War soldiers are remembered as an important part of the nation's history, and there's a huge reason for that. Their post-war experience permanently shaped modern American civic life. The veterans who survived and came home didn't just quietly go back to their plows and desks. No way. They formed a massive, highly influential organizations, like the Grand Army of the Republic. Their lobbying directly influenced the creation of a modern federal pension system. They established the national tradition of Memorial Day, and the memory of their service heavily influenced civil rights debates for the next century. We really just can't understand the political and cultural footprint of modern America without acknowledging them.
So the Civil War soldier wasn't just fighting battles. They were literally forging the modern United States in the crucible of combat. When we look at the constitutional rights we hold, the centralized federal government we interact with, and the unified borders we maintain today, we're basically living in the house that they built. It leaves us with a lingering, vital question. Are we doing enough today to uphold the Union, the civic responsibility, and the fundamental freedoms that 3 million people sacrificed absolutely everything to secure? If this got you thinking, make sure to follow World History Explained to continue your journey and learn more amazing history facts. See you in the next Explainer.